Time now for the latest in business, and we have Catherine Bennett here from our business desk. Good to see you. News just in about the social media platform WhatsApp, which said that it's delaying new features regarding the use of data. There was a huge backlash against these measures. Catherine, is that why the company is having second thoughts?
Absolutely, I think it is. And that's because of this backlash from users. They're under a huge amount of pressure because their users have forced the company to review this planned update. Now, WhatsApp announced changes to its privacy terms, meaning that users of WhatsApp would have to agree to share their data with Facebook and Instagram. There was an instant outcry over this, and thousands of users flocked to rival messaging apps Signal and Telegram. So since then, WhatsApp has been engaged in damage control, trying to reassure users about how they collect and use personal data. They've just announced that they're rolling back the 8th of February deadline for accepting changes to its terms of service, and now that policy won't happen until 15th of May. The company has admitted publicly that it needs to do a lot more to clear up misinformation about how privacy and security works on the platform. Companies in the US have been suspending political donations following the attack on the Capitol on the 6th of January. In the US, companies use political action committees to donate money to both political parties, with the aim of gently pushing policy that's in their interests. Since last week's violence, a number of companies have either stopped donations altogether or been more targeted in their approach, suspending donations to the 147 Republicans in Congress who voted against the certification of electoral college votes. Now, this is a huge corporate response to political events. Hallmark Cards, for instance, has even asked Republican Senators Roger Marshall and Josh Hawley to return donations that the company gave them over the past 2 years, totaling $12,000. We can take a look at the markets now. Wall Street ended this week with a sell-off as investors balked at the cost of Biden's proposed economic rescue plan. The Dow Jones fell over 0.5%, the S&P 500 down 0.75%, and the Nasdaq down almost 1%. EU markets also ended the week downbeat, closing in the red. The FTSE was down 1%, and the CAC 40 and the DAX both dropped over 1.5%. The UK government says that post-Brexit trade between mainland Britain and Northern Ireland is flowing smoothly, but it's a different story on the ground. Hauliers say that supply chains are just days away from collapsing. Earlier this week, UK supermarkets warned the government that urgent intervention was required. Here's Camille Nedlek with the latest.
Supermarket shoppers in Northern Ireland have been left with a bitter taste in their mouths as the shelves lie empty as a result of Brexit. This deli is also struggling.
We can't get deliveries, our companies are taking orders and then they're ringing us back going, we can't deliver that, until further notice.
Northern Ireland is aligned with the EU single market to avoid a hard border with the Republic of Ireland. But that means that British goods arriving in the territory are subject to checks in case they're then exported into the EU. Many businesses are struggling to adapt, and this is only the beginning. The checks are set to become even more complicated after a grace period runs out in March. Leading supermarkets have written to the government asking for a long-term solution to be agreed with the EU ahead of that deadline, as hauliers warn of long transport delays.
I've never seen disruption on REC movements on the scale we're seeing now. We've talked to lots of other hauliers and we're reporting 40% of trailers are coming back from GB empty. That's just something that hauliers could not have dreamed of.
The British Prime Minister admitted that there were teething problems, but insisted that goods are flowing effectively.
And finally, from me, we all know how annoying it is when you forget a password for an online service. But imagine if that forgotten password gave you access to millions of dollars. That's the case of a man in the US who only has 2 guesses left to get into a digital wallet with 7,000 Bitcoin, which is the equivalent of $220 million. Analysts estimate that 20% of Bitcoin in the world, adding up to $140 billion, are stranded behind a forgotten password. Bitcoin prices have skyrocketed in the past few months, but this week stabilised after hitting a peak last week. And that wraps up the business from me.
Okay, thanks a lot, Catherine.